fans, this is Dustin J. Markowitz coming to you, taped, as always, from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing yet another edition of your favorite bowling show, Bowling Evolved. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, the co-host with the most. You know, Eric, we did this once before on our comeback in November, and, it's only been a week, so I don't think I'm going to go over all the names again. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Eric Forkel. Eric, how you doing tonight?
And who are you again?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, yeah. It's Dustin. That's right. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm very well, very well. I'm very happy to say this is our second show we've recorded, within about a week and a half span, and it's good to be back. I'm very happy with the feedback we received on the November special, and I think this is going to be good.
Yeah, this could be one of our all-time great shows. We got some really exciting stuff to talk about. I know we're not the ones who broke this story, but we're close.
Absolutely, we're very close.
We're going to be close.
With that being said, let's go ahead and introduce our guest this evening. She was actually our second guest ever on Bowling Evolved, so this is kind of a homecoming for her, for us at least. She is the 2013 Women's Senior U.S. Open champion, a DV8 staffer, one of the very premier names, not to mention founder of the WBA. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Paula Vidad. Paula, how are you doing tonight?
I am excellent, Dustin and Eric, and it's so good to be back on the show, and I'm glad you guys are back.
Well, thank you very much, Paula. It is great to be back. We've had a lot of fun, but let's just start with the news that is breaking. Apparently, we are going to have a high-profile women's bowlers tour again, and tell us a little bit about this. I guess iGrind's involved, and we just broke the story, I believe, on the Sports Schmucks. It's really fantastic.
Yes, it's wonderful news with no tour since 2003. I just can't believe that it's been 10 years. The Women's Bowling Alliance and iGrind Bowling are merging to form IWBA, which will be a nonprofit organization. And those people that aren't familiar with iGrind, they bring awareness to autism, and so they have a foundation, and they combine it with bowling to bring events. But most of all, we are joining forces and going to start you can call it a tour, but not really a tour. It's one tournament a month for 12 months starting May of 2014. And the tournaments, we have 1.6 million to put in for the next 12 months. So it's very exciting news. And I remember back in the day, we had, it was Sam's Town, it was an umbrella sponsor, and they had 2 million, and that was over quite a few years. But this is 1.6 million for 1 year and 12 tournaments.
So, if I may, my question would be, what kind of prize funds are you looking at?
Well, we're definitely minimum adding $40,000. That's minimum. And with the tournament being held in bowling centers throughout the United States, there is no cost to the bowling center, and they are going to be receiving 5% of whatever the projected prize fund or the total prize fund is going to be. So wow. That's a big change. So, whereas before you're always asking money from the bowling center to contribute, we're actually contributing to the center now.
So you're going to basically pay to play, so to speak.
Correct.
That's very fantastic.
And so you're going to pay to play, and it's going to be the show's going to be run on the internet.
Yes, we'll be live streaming. The company that will be doing the live streaming is still pending, but it'll probably be the company that was used previously in the Detroit tournament, but it's not finalized yet. But we will have live streaming.
And are you guys going to do any type of a pro-am?
Yes, but it's going to be a different kind of pro-am. We are working with companies, not to be named just yet because it's still in process, but we're looking at doing things that are completely different, like a spa day. So the company that we're working with, you would have the opportunity to go have a spa day with some of the top women bowlers and be able to bask in the sauna or the whatever part of the spa you're in and have fun and just converse and have a good time. Something different.
That's definitely different. That's for sure.
Very interesting. I have to say, from being a tournament coordinator and looking at it from the proprietor standpoint, this is definitely very unique in comparison to anything else that's going on right now. How did you come up with this concept?
Well, it was actually iGrind's ideas, and I think because all the sponsors are outside of bowling, you have to come up with brand new ideas. We're so used to doing the same thing over and over again and not changing because we are within the bowling industry as far as our sponsors, that you have to start thinking outside the box, and that's exactly what iGrind has done.
So the whole thing, it perplexes me a little bit. Where does iGrind, first of all, how do they get this kind of money to put into this? Where does their money come from?
Well, it's a nonprofit organization, which is their number one thing is to promote awareness for autism.
Okay.
But it isn't specifically that, because one of the tournaments that they're working on is in the New York area, and we were trying to get this together during Super Bowl week or weekend and get the charity for the NFL players, that have had the concussions and have mental problems and brain damage. So it was going to be in conjunction with the Super Bowl and get the NFL players as far as a pro-am and everything, but it's a little too quick now, so our first tournament's not going to be till May, but the following February of 2015, it's a possibility then, and we'll have more time to work on that. So it's not only the autism, but it's all kinds of different foundations that you're raising awareness. And the companies really, the main companies really are Fort Worth to give money for these foundations, and it's in combination with bowling. So I think that's the right combination that they found.
Interesting. I just try to figure out how the people who are iGrind, is it a group of people? Is it one person? Is it a couple?
No, it's a group of people. The main president, Grady Merritt Foster, iGrind was established only about 6 months ago. The family does have businesses, and one of them is the child care. And I don't know the whole story about how iGrind itself got started and everything, but they did have the tournament in Detroit, which paid $30,000 first place. So so the money is coming in, and there's a lot more sponsors and unique ideas coming, and it's very interesting when they keep telling me these new things, because like I said, they're thinking outside of the box, and things that you and I as bowlers over the past 20-30 years just wouldn't even think of. So it's a new breath of fresh air that is coming into bowling, and it's great, because now we are moving upward and onward for, number one, women's bowling, but maybe it'll give a fresh new idea to all the other companies that want to hold tournaments and ways of creating and generating money now for these tournaments.
Yeah, it could. And what about, let's see, the people who used to bowl out on the ladies' shore? I'm sure a lot of those people are very happy.
Oh, ecstatic. So, and we're looking to get a tournament director, which was previously the ladies bowlers tour tournament director, which would be wonderful, because to, number one, bring nostalgia, and also just the thought of having the women that were the pioneers and actually, to be gone for 10 years. That's a big span, because that's a lot of talent that has been missed over those years. And, the senior ladies, just like myself and Tish Johnson, Anne Marie, and Lucy Sandlin, we're in this other group now, and to be able to see the young kids really make it and do the things that we were able to do back in I bowled in the 80s, but even before then, to be able to make their mark in the bowling world and show off their talent. And I do have to tell you that, it's not really a tour. It is a tour around the United States, but it's only on the weekends. So,
Really?
and
Really?
the thought of that is, that was my original thought back in 2010, because, you do have to take a week off, whether, it's the guys that are going to go bowl the Masters, or you're going to go bowl the Open Championships and U.S. Open. That's 3 weeks of vacation already that you have to take. So knowing that we're going to have one tournament a month, there's no one that could take 12 weeks off during a year. So that was the thing that I wanted to make sure that people were able to bowl. So it's going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, and most likely the pro-ams are going to be on Friday, and then the tournament on Saturday and Sunday. And bowling for that kind of money is pretty phenomenal.
Simple, I would think a fairly simple format, qualifying and then a finals on Sunday.
Yes, but we're going to have 4 or 5 different types of formats. Different types of formats, so every single one isn't the same in every location. And just like the WBA, we had different kinds of formats where you could actually some re-enter, some where the pins are dropped, some where it's just like a beat the board kind of thing. We're even thinking of eliminator type of tournament. So just, something different at every tournament, so it's not the same thing.
Mixing it up for all bowlers, I find that very interesting. Now, are all of the stops already determined where you're going to be stopping on this quasi-tour, if you will?
No, not yet. We hope to have it all finalized by Thanksgiving.
Interesting. Now, if someone was looking for information on the tournaments, on what's coming up, or if they were interested in hosting an event, how would they go about contacting you?
Well, they can contact me currently at Paula at womensbowlingalliance.com. And, Grady's getting bombarded also, but we have everything in motion, but we're trying to make a circle. So, if we went from Dallas to Florida to Atlanta and then kind of went up that way, just depending on the weather and what area that we're trying to hit. We don't want to be bouncing back and forth and everything. And many a times you're going to have it where it's more of a regional thing. And if we keep it Midwest, then then we can kind of get it where people from each side of the country can make it, and hopefully a tier 1 airport. Just all the things that make it affordable for somebody, and that you could still go and make a decent living at it. And some people might be able to make a living bowling one tournament a month, and if you're coming in the, say, top 10, that it would be like a regular job.
Any idea what first place would be?
We are working on prize funds now, and so, and then we're also basing it on different formats are going to have different entries, prices. So, like at the end of the year, we might have a major tournament where it's the champions. So, it might be a little bit more expensive. And if you do like an eliminator, that might have to be right around $100. So there's a lot of different factors and that we have to consider. And so that means that's a lot of different prize funds that we have to come up with too.
Any age grouping, or is it just women bowlers, period, of any age? You're not going to have like seniors and then juniors and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. It's women in general. We might have some special prizes for seniors that participate, just like in the one that I had in Modesto. If a senior bowler didn't make the top 12, then, or the top, 1 in 4 ratio, then there was a separate payout for them, and it basically doubled their entry. So we're looking at different things, and you never know, we might have a senior event in conjunction. And of course, juniors and collegiate bowlers can bowl, except for the collegiate bowlers during the NCAA season. And that's one of the reasons we're starting it in May, is that we can get the collegiate bowlers, because their season will have ended, I think, by the end of April. And then so that whole summer, we could get those top collegiate bowlers bowling our tournaments.
Very interesting. I think it's fascinating that this has finally come to fruition. I'm so happy that we're starting to see the reemergence of bowling, not just on the PBA, of course, but now obviously with your organization. Do you have any hopes for the future after this obviously gets off the ground?
Well, yes, it's, you always want to see how things work out the first year, get rid of some of the bumps in the road and see what works, what doesn't work. We do have a board of directors, and of course, it's everybody's opinion is going to count in how things are done and why they're done and how they're done. So I think that's very important to get the bowler's opinion as far as when I remember back on the tour, and I'm not knocking them, but it was basically two people, and it was whatever their decision was, it stood. So in this case, we have 5 board of directors, and if it's a 3-2 vote, then at least it was the majority vote as opposed to just 1 or 2 people making a decision.
Mm-hmm. I would assume you've talked, or you're going to be speaking probably to the Bowler's Journal.
Yes. Well, we're hoping to get a press release out as soon as possible, and that's iGrind is working on that. And also, sorry to answer the previous question, the future of bowling, women's bowling, is to hopefully get it to grow where we can host more tournaments in more major cities. And just looking at it, I don't know if we'll ever have a regular tour, but you never know. And with live streaming and not having the production costs as you would with having it on ESPN or Fox Sports, that you could put more money into the prize funds. But there again, television is always the number one thing to get exposure and what major companies want. But you never know that if we get the community involved and they see how much exposure we get through that and live streaming, then you get to be able to watch things on your devices that, I don't know, maybe that's what more major corporations are looking at, to actually get personalized one-on-one on your device or on your phone and have it texted to you. So we'll see. Hopefully it keeps growing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always, talking about women and strong-minded women, would you think that somebody like Billie Jean King would be interested in something like this?
Well, I hope so, because she has got involved with the team play, and now right. Carolyn Doran Ballard is the manager for her team. So with the Women's Sports Foundation, it's possibly something that we could join forces with them too, which would be wonderful.
I would think she would, because I know she's always obviously she believes so much in women's sports, and and I would just think somebody like that. Now that's definitely a strong name and definitely a strong person to have involved. You never know what that can do for you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I'll have to have Carolyn talk to her personally about it.
Oh, that would be. I mean, that would just be. You would think she would really get into something like that. It's because it would be a way to grow the sport, especially for women. Right.
And with her involvement with the PBA, that should probably be, a no-brainer to be able to do both and really promote the women, because I know the Women's Sports Foundation, they do a lot of grants and things for young people in sports. So I think it would be a good fit.
Like I said, I have a strange feeling that women's bowling is going to possibly take a big move forward, and men's bowling is going to possibly go the other way.
which is sad.
Could be ironic, and it's sad, of course. But
now I do want to say this, Eric, before we jump on that bandwagon. Now, men's bowling might take a back step, but mixed bowling is still going to be going forward, because I do know our Laughlin Cup is coming up, and I'm going to open an invitation out to Paula to come down and bowl this year. So
okay, sounds good.
So what is the date on that?
Oh, it's to be announced, and I will get you the invitation as soon as it is announced. We're going to be talking about that at the end of the show tonight.
Okay. Well, you know what? Mixed doubles is so popular. Like, look at the Lucy Bonneau in Houston during the summer. That you have some of the top PBA stars and the top women bowling together. You'd think that it's a regular tour stop. And then there was the one at South Point, and we used to have 2 here in Southern California, and there used to be 2 up in Northern California. Well, one of the bowling centers closed down here at Yorba Linda Bowl, and that was one of the places. But Mission Hills Bowl, we still have that tournament, and the WBA is putting that on in a couple of weeks. That's on the 23rd and 24th. So we might have to do a big doubles tournament out on one of the stops.
Yeah, that would probably be great for you guys. I would think that would work. That would definitely work.
It'd be great. I think it'd be great not just for the WBA, but for bowling in general. I mean, anything that helps promote the sport and is unique, it can't hurt.
Sure. Yeah, just Jeff Carter and I were trying to put a doubles together this past summer, but the dates and everything didn't work out. So maybe I'll have to try to work with Jeff again.
I think we have a puppy break. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, we did.
A puppy squeak.
I think that's our sign on the show. I do want to let everyone know, if you have a chance, please check out the Women's Bowling Alliance at womensbowlingalliance.com. Also, iGrind Bowling at igrindbowling.com. I think, Paula, this is really fantastic. I wish you the best, and I sincerely, from Bowling Evolved, anything we can do, please let us know.
I appreciate it. Yes, it is very exciting, and to get the word out as much as possible, and just the buzz that has been created is great, and the support, and I think people have missed women's bowling.
Yeah, I think I know I have. I always enjoyed watching the women bowl on TV back when there was a tour, and back when the men had a real tour, back when bowling had a real tour, to be honest with you. Live bowling, hopefully, you guys will bowl your tournament, and then you'll have the finals, and you won't show it a month later. You'll hopefully show it that same weekend. That would be nice. I like the real part of it. I think most people don't like to bowl and then have it aired like a month or two later. I think that's ridiculous, but
yes, wow,
that's another story. But so hopefully you guys will do it right, and it sounds like you are. And looks like iGrind. Did they say why they wanted to get involved with the women? Did they tell you?
Well, they actually were going to get involved with the senior men also, but things didn't work out with that, and we were looking at doing like a ladies and legends, but it didn't work out. Or they're concentrating on the women's right now, and that it might have turned out better to just concentrate on one as opposed to trying to do a lot. So in the future it might work out, because then we can smooth out everything that needs to be just as a startup to get it going in the right direction, and then with other people and support that just help build it to be bigger and better.
Are you guys going to have a membership as well for your organization?
No, there is no membership, and that was one of the things when I started the WBA too, knowing that I wasn't going to be in every single city and everywhere, and with a lot of tournaments, that I didn't want people have to pay a membership, and and have anybody and everybody who wanted to bowl be able to bowl, because a lot of times with that membership dollars, it usually just goes into the organization's pocket to help run things, and when you have the kind of money that's coming in, then you don't have to worry about those things.
One more question. Are you guys going to have lane maintenance?
Yes. And
Okay.
in most cases, the houses that we are going to go to will have kegel machines. And this is a scoop, and because this was just today that I talked to Kevin Coleman, our lane patterns, he wants to name them after some of the top women bowlers of the past.
Interesting.
So we aren't going to be animal patterns. We're going to be previous and past historical women bowlers names.
Interesting. Well, there you go. A Bowling Evolved exclusive. Something
That is an exclusive.
I like it.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Yes.
And please do me a favor. Don't color the oil.
I completely agree.
Just please don't. Just
I
let it be real.
I promise. I promise.
Well, there's
Thanks.
debate for the end of our show, but we'll get into that here in a second. But
I know I had posted it on Facebook too, and that sparked a thing or two, and yeah.
actually, Paula, before we let you go, if you don't mind sticking around, we are closing in on the end of our half-hour segment tonight, but I was going to bring up a new topic tonight, which was going to be the lane oil controversy. Would you mind holding on for just a minute?
Sure, not at all.
Okay. Well, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thanks again for tuning in. We do have a couple quick announcements. First and foremost, before we let Paula go, we are going to have a new segment tonight, which is basically looking at a controversial subject in bowling, which, as we already were touching base on, the blue oil, which I believe has gone a lot of buzz out there. We also want to throw a quick shout out to bowlingbutler.com. Bowlingbutler.com and bowlingevolve.com have partnered up. We will now be featured on bowlingbutler.com. Ricky Dennis invented the Grip Ease sacks, and Eric, I know you love yours as much as I love mine.
Yes, I think it's an excellent product. It does its job, keeps your hand nice and dry, so you can get a great feel of the ball. And I think he's got a hell of a product.
Look at the description of our video this week. We will have a link to our new home for the time being, and of course, Bowling Evolved will be pointing directly to bowlingbutler.com. Once again, thank you to Ricky Dennis and everyone with his company for what they're doing. But let's come into our closing segment tonight. Controversy on the lanes. And to this week's subject, I think is very interesting, as we were touching base on, is the colored oil. Paula, Eric, I know you both have sounded off a little bit on Facebook. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have read the Twitter wars and the Facebook comments going back and forth. Paula, we'll start with you. What's your opinion on the colored oil, and how do you think it has affected the game?
Well, we haven't seen it because there is no show yet. I wasn't there live, but some people's take is that it'll help viewers understand our sport, and I don't have an opinion on that yet, but I have an opinion that it shouldn't be used any other time. Like I said in my post, is that the PGA would never consider putting dye on the greens to show you which direction the blades of grass are going. So why do we need to bring our sport to where you can actually see the sand traps and the water like you do in golf? And that's where I say that bowling is a much more difficult sport than golf, and some people will disagree with me, but we can't see those obstacles. And then we have so much more that we have to have the right ball in our hand position, rotation, axis tilt. Whereas in golf, yes, you have to have the right club in your hand, and whether it's a draw, a fade, but we can't see the obstacles. And that's where bowling is so much more difficult, I think, than any other sport that people realize. But, they think that if you could see the oil that you're going to know what you need to do, and I don't agree.
Eric?
Well, we don't have 5 hours, do we? No, we don't have that much. We don't have that much time. I get what they were trying to do, but once again, the biggest thing that always stands out in my head is the word gimmick. I always see a gimmick. I've seen this over the last 5-6 years, especially with the PBA, whether they're doing the trick shots, throwing bowling balls over chairs, all this gimmicky stuff that they keep trying to do. And I think it's a shame, and I think it's kind of a farce. And I think, like Paula said about, they don't do that with golf because they don't have to. They don't have to gimmick it. It's real. There's a lot of money that players play for, and there's a lot of respect. I think if people watch a TV show and they see blue oil or in the lane, I don't think that's going to do diddly squat for anything. I think people are going to go, oh, look, the lane's got color on it. And when they go to their local bowling center, they're going to say, how come your lanes don't have color on it? And maybe they'll leave. Maybe they'll just go and say, hey, I want to go somewhere with this colored oil. And maybe I'm not going to bowl if I don't see the colored oil. I mean, this could have a reverse effect. I just think it's another way of gimmicking the whole thing to make people try to get interested. And if you have to do some sort of a weird gimmick to get people interested, then your game is not that interesting to begin with. And it's a shame that bowling has to keep trying to do that because, in my opinion, they don't have good sponsorship anymore. They don't have a real live tour. They have a pseudo-fake tour, basically. And it's just done in a very peculiar way. And obviously, I'm not a fan of putting color on the lane. I don't know. Maybe if you go down to the Kegel Training Center and they want to show bowlers how oil traveled, the bowlers who are there to, work on their game and improve, and you want to see how the oil migrates down the lane and maybe stuff like that. Strictly a teaching device, but for entertainment purposes, it doesn't. For me, I think it's kind of a joke. I don't see it in a positive way. Obviously, by the way I'm talking about it. But I'm sure there are some people who do see it as a positive. I don't think it's going to interest people. I don't think it's going to change it one way or the other. The problem is there's no money. there's no tour, there's no sponsorship, not enough people can make a living. Besides that, it's pretty good.
Well, Eric,
besides that, it's pretty good.
Well, Eric, I have to agree that just because you put blue oil doesn't mean that you're going to have viewers that you didn't have before to make it more interesting. Well, maybe the Thunder Sticks worked, but not the blue oil.
Exactly. I mean, it's just one thing after another. It's just, and I get it. I get it. If you can't get it from one area, you got to try to drum it up on another area. And it's a sad state of affairs. Dustin and I talked about this on our last show about how they try to put all these tournaments together. You bowl like 10 tournaments in 4 days, and you can bowl 14 games and win a tournament, whereas in the old days you got to bowl 40, 50, 60 games. Everything is done at a quicker speed to get it over with so they can get it in the can and get it shown somewhere down the road. I just think it's terribly sad for professional bowling. And I realize that's the current state, but it's just a shame. It's a shame.
Yes, well, I think it has to come down to production costs, and that's one of the reasons that happened with the women's tour. All of a sudden, ESPN wanted $150,000 a show, and that was just not feasible. I mean, that was more money than the whole tour, 4 or 5 week tour stop that the women had. So I could see that where the production costs, but like you said, it's almost like a sprint to a title. Bowl 14 games and you're a winner. So I mean, they're cutting back, budget cuts and everything, but hopefully the women's tour will do the opposite, and we'll have to look at things differently.
Well, I would hope so. And like I said, I personally hope so. I hope that somebody does it in a more normal way that would make maybe more sense. And again, even if it's live TV, if it's on the internet, it's still live. It still happened that week. It happened that time. You don't have to. You don't have any spoilers out there. It's going to be shown. When the way they do it now is it's horrible. I mean, if you're any type of a bowler and you appreciate it, it's the competition to know that already what's happened and it hasn't been shown and it won't be on for a month. I don't see the excitement there, to be honest with you. I really don't.
Well, I do want to say one thing on the oil controversy, and then that'll be my piece. I tend to agree with both of you. I think that the oil did cheapen up the if you want to call it the telecast. Obviously, we haven't seen them yet, but the concept to me bothers me as a bowler. However, I do think that if they were willing to do something like that they should have done it not necessarily as a tournament, but as a way to show people, which is what they want to do, is how the oil broke down. Why not go all the way? Why not make clear balls that show off the cores? Why not? And I'm not saying this as a tournament. I'm saying this as a special or as a vignette where they just broke everything down and really showcased what they were talking about. I think that would have had more effect and not have bothered the purist of the game and whatnot as much as this has. And I think it would have achieved the same goal, frankly.
Well, let me ask you this, Dustin. What do you think the demographic is, or who do you think watches the TV shows? What type of person is going to turn the show on nowadays?
Well, I can tell you what they're trying for, as opposed to who actually is. But that's, generally speaking, the general demographic of bowling is still the older bowlers. It's still the older demographic that watched it in the 70s and 80s and the 90s. But they're trying to get the MTV generation, as you well know, as well as I know, or my age and younger. They want to get the guys that watch Jersey Shore. I mean, look at bringing in Terrell Owen and bringing in these different people to try to popularize it with outside of the bowling culture. I don't know if it's working. I don't think it is. I really don't.
Well, I guess what bothers me the most is back in the day, the 80s and 90s. They had sponsors. They had all kinds of sponsors. Granted, they weren't all the greatest sponsors, but they had a tour that was full of sponsors. They didn't have blanket sponsors. They had individual sponsors. They had beer companies. They had cigarette companies. They had all kinds of companies in Quaker State. You name it, they had it. Uh-huh. That's all gone now. It's all gone now. So how is that possible? How is all those sponsors? They've just decided that bowling is not the right thing to put their money into anymore?
Well, it seems to me at this point, Eric, I mean, and obviously I can't speak for the PBA directly, but I will say, I mean, look at our little local tournaments. If we're able to pick up sponsors on a local level, if the WBA is able to pick up sponsors like iGrind and obviously sponsors outside of bowling, then there are ways to do it. So the question that I would throw out there, and this goes to the PBA, this goes to any of our listeners, and feel free to write us in at bowlingevolved@gmail.com or, of course, on our Facebook page at Facebook/bowlingevolved. Why can't the PBA pick up outside sponsors anymore? I would like to know an answer.
And that's a big question. And what about NASCAR? Why is nothing ever done with NASCAR? Probably one of the most popular, friendly sports for people to get involved with, that just draws the people in like you can't believe. How come bowling in any shape or form? Why doesn't professional bowling get involved with NASCAR at all?
The BPAA did that one. Where was it? Sonoma or whatever. And not once did they say go bowling. It was a go bowling tournament. And not once did they ever say it. I think the car that it was on was out after the first couple of laps, and who knows how much they spent on that. So, but I think that was Steve Johnson, because he came from outside of the bowling industry. And he's also the one that did the bowling outside of the lane, on the street on Reno. So Steve Johnson, who is no longer, did bring some different ideas, and that's what we need. Like you said, NASCAR, it's a perfect blue collar, kind of thing, and bowling is blue collar.
Exactly. And I mean, what happened to the beer companies? And last time I checked in bowling centers, I think they sell beer. Last time I checked, there's a lot of beer. So I mean, I'm just all these things. I keep wondering what the heck happened. And that's why, in my opinion, sadly, the PBA has to go in these directions that are so bizarre. They have to do these things that to me are just crazy. And they don't really have a tour anymore. They have to go, if you want to bowl for a living, you got to go overseas to fulfill your year to have a chance to make any kind of a living, because you can't do it here in the United States. So these are all the questions I don't understand. I mean, bowling centers throughout the country, as Paula knows, being a proprietor herself, sell a lot of beer. Very, very, very popular. It's a very popular beverage. Yes. Very popular. How is beer companies not involved with any type of professional bowling anymore is beyond me.
I just figured it out, Eric. I absolutely know how we're going to say bowling. You ready?
Okay, go ahead.
With the commercialization of marijuana, that's what becomes a new sponsor for bowling.
That's great. Well, I know Steve Stevens would love that. If you know who Steve Stevens is, he's a big proponent of that. You know what? It just, every time I think about it, it irritates me, because I remember back in the day, all the Bud Light tournaments and the Bud Light PBA National Championship, which I happened to win, but still, they had these big sponsors. I mean, they were just, and the fans, I realize we live in a different day and age, but bowling is still bowling, and people still go to bowling centers, and they still drink a ton of beer. So how on earth is that not involved in, whether it's men's bowling or even women's bowling, how they're not involved anymore, it just is beyond me. And who knows, maybe that'll change somewhere down the road, but I think that's the biggest question out there. Maybe there's someone will answer it. Maybe we can put that out to our 6 or 7 listeners, and maybe... Well, we might have 8 now that Paul is on the show. We might have 8.
That's right. Well, our WBA tournament that we had in St. Louis had a beer distributor sponsor, and yes, it should be based even on a local thing. So that was one of our biggest paying tournaments was because one of the sponsors was a beer distributor.
These are the things that I've wondered for many, many years. I mean, I've been gone from the tour for 7, 8 years now, but I just don't understand what has happened. And, I'm not a marketing guru. I'm just a guy who used to bowl for a living, but I remember the good old days, and I know certain things have changed, but like I said, people still drink a lot of alcohol in bowling centers, and I'm surprised. I'm just surprised that it's really gone away from bowling. I'm just shocked.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to take us into the end of our show. I want to say thank you very much for listening, and of course, a big thank you to Paula Vidad coming on our show once again, basically a 1-year return. Paula, thank you so much tonight.
Well, thank you very much for having me on again. It's a pleasure to be on, and I'm sure we could talk for hours.
Oh, absolutely. Do want to say again, as we did mention, the Laughlin Cup date will be announced here within the next couple of weeks. Paula, we are sending out an invitation for you to come bowl. We want you to grace us with your presence.
Okay, I will definitely make a point of coming to bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, great. We got another bowler to compete against. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, way to go. Another superstar bowler going to come join us. Okay, good.
Well, Eric, when I win the thing, you're going to have to do the commentary on the show with somebody. So Paula is going to be your partner.
That would be fine. We could Paul and I could use a good laugh, so that'll be great.
Oh boy.
And then we'll bowl pot games and drink beer.
Oh, it sounds good to me.
No beer allowed because beer has nothing to do with bowling. Remember that. Nothing to do with bowling.
Yeah, but I can't bowl league without drinking a beer.
Exactly.
Oh.
And if you were, but they're good for league bowlers, but professional they want nothing to do with.
That's right.
We'll open up a new can of worms. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, Paula Vidad and Eric Borkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.